Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the most soul-numbing, muscle-torching, and back-breaking job in the ancient Roman world, building a road. Not walking it, not mapping it, building it, stone by stone, by hand, with tools that would make a garden spade look luxurious. You're not some noble engineer sipping wine and sketching blueprints in a villa, no. You're down in the dirt, literally. Waist deep in a trench that's mostly rocks, mostly mud, and somehow always more trench. Your title, irrelevant. You've got a pickaxe, maybe, and if you're lucky, some shoes that haven't completely dissolved from the inside out. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your local time and location in the comments. It's oddly comforting to see how many people fall asleep to ancient suffering at 2:17 a.m. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge out before sunrise. Roman supervisors insist roadwork begins with the day's first breath, which unfortunately means your first breath is often a wheezing gasp in cold pre-dawn sludge. The trench isn't done. It never is. You dig and dig and dig again, all for a road that must, by decree of Rome, go in a perfectly straight line. Even if that line happens to cut through a marsh, a boulder, or someone's uncle's graveyard. Doesn't matter. Rome says straight, you dig straight. The men around you are mostly silent. Not out of stoicism, but because talking wastes energy and lets more dust into your lungs. Occasionally, someone coughs, or groans, or slumps over, and you hear the overseer mutter something about finding a replacement before midday. Your muscles, they stopped complaining 3 days ago. Now they just whimper. The Romans called this first layer of a road the statumen, big chunks of rock that form a rough foundation. To place them, you have to dig about 3 feet down, pull out any roots, snakes, or unlucky lizards, and then haul in rocks that weigh as much as you did last week before you started missing meals. Some days you don't know if you're building a road or burying your dignity under it. Historical records show the Roman road system covered over 250,000 miles with more than 50,000 miles paved, which means, yes, thousands of people like you live this life. This wasn't an elite engineering dream. It was a logistical nightmare solved by one tool labor. Human labor, mostly free, often enslaved, always exhausted. The pickaxe in your hand. It's not really a pickaxe, it's whatever blunt chunk of metal your team has managed to tie to a stick. That's if you're lucky. Otherwise, it's a shovel you share with 2 other people who both have head lice and one missing tooth between them. One guy insists on naming his tools too. His rock is named Justice. It's unclear if that's supposed to be ironic. As for shoes, you're wearing something that resembles a sandal. If you squint, it has straps, it has holes, it does not have soles. The statumen layer takes forever because every stone has to be positioned compacted and leveled with meticulous care by someone who hasn't slept properly in 6 weeks. One crooked slab and the whole stretch might get rejected by the agrimensor or the road surveyor, a man with clean boots and a stick who declares with zero irony that this must be corrected. Historians still argue whether these agrimensors were sadists or just deeply committed to their job. Either way, you hate them. Let's pause here for your mid-morning snack. It's vinegar water and stale barley bread. If it's Tuesday, you get a fig. If it's Saturnalia, you might even get salt. Luxury. You sit on a boulder chewing and try not to think about how the guy across from you has trench fever again. He's been sweating through his tunic for 2 days and muttering about frogs that aren't there. By midday, the sun feels like it's punishing you personally, not even for something you did, just for existing. The trench is deeper now. So are your regrets. You hear rumors that some people volunteer for this work to gain Roman citizenship. You wonder if they had a stroke before signing up. The odd thing, despite all this, your cracked fingernails, your flaking skin, the dust permanently lodged in your sinuses, there's a kind of rhythm, a trance, shovel lift, drop, shovel lift, drop. You stop thinking about escape. You stop thinking, period. That's when the real danger sets in. Because somewhere in this haze of monotony and fatigue, you forget where you end and the road begins. You are stone. You are sweat. You are the aching hinge of empire. Rome doesn't see your face. Rome only sees progress. Quirky tidbit. Roman engineers sometimes used crushed ceramics or volcanic ash in road layers to prevent water damage. You, however, are just trying to prevent knee damage. There's no ash in this stretch, only the ashes of your patience. As the day ends, you hear the whistle. You want to drop dead. But you know you still have to carry your tools back, wash your feet in a bucket shared by 8 other guys, and then sleep on a straw mat that smells like all the previous owners. You lie there, muscles twitching, bones humming. Tomorrow you'll do it all again, and you won't even be close to done. You wake up to the sound of someone throwing up in the corner. Again. The camp is a mosaic of groans, muttered curses, and one guy who insists he dreamt about Rome finally collapsing under the weight of all its perfectly straight roads. You don't tell him that sounds like a mercy. Your legs feel like they've been filled with wet sand. Your back like it's been replaced by a creaky door hinge. Still you rise, because if you don't, a centurion will make you rise with the butt of his vine staff. It's not personal. It's just how things work out here. Today you're not digging. Today you're hauling. The second layer of the Roman road, the rudis, requires stones about the size of your head. Not your proud before-construction head, but your shrunken, sleep-deprived, sun-scalded one. These stones don't magically arrive. They must be quarried, dragged, and dumped by you. You're not alone. There's a team of maybe 20 men, a couple oxen, that hate eye contact and a wheeled cart so primitive it squeaks in Latin. Together, you make the daily round trip from the nearby quarry, a jagged rock face that looks like it's been chewed on by angry gods. The cart is a joke. The wheels wobble. The axle creaks like it's writing its own eulogy. But worse, the path isn't finished yet. So your job isn't just to haul the stones. It's to make the road while dragging the stones across the unmade road. Welcome to Paradox Roman Edition. Historians still argue whether Roman road crews received any standardized training, or if they simply learned by doing and by watching someone else dislocate their shoulder first. Given your experience, it's the second one. And oh, the rations, vinegar wine and salted cheese, so dry it could double as roof tile. Your belly protests. Then it gives up. You've learned that hunger isn't a sharp pain, it's a dull buzz that becomes part of your background noise like flies, or that one guy who hums the same 2 notes all day. As the sun climbs higher, your hands begin to blister under the ropes. You try to adjust the knot. Too late. One tug, and the fibers slice into your palm like the gods disapprove of your grip. You reach the quarry and start loading. The process is simple. Lift stone, stumble, curse, repeat. By noon, your knees have filed a formal complaint. One guy has already dropped a slab on his foot. He says he's fine, but that toe is the color of overripe plums. Still no one stops, because there's a rhythm here too. A brutal, unrelenting tempo. And if you fall behind, the cart doesn't wait. It just rolls without you. Or, worse, over you. Quirky tidbit. Some Roman work crews were incentivized with salt rations, literally paid in salt. The word salary comes from this. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. Your pay is currently trapped in a sweating satchel tied to your belt, slowly turning your hip into a salt lick. On the way back, you hit a dip in the terrain. The cart leans, then shudders, then tips. Rocks scatter. A wheel rolls into the brush like it's trying to escape the story. You and 2 others stand frozen, covered in dust, and the knowledge that this just added 3 hours to your already cursed day. A supervisor shows up. He says nothing at first, just stares. Then, without moving his lips much, he mutters, "Fix it." That's it. That's the leadership style. No encouragement, no strategy, just a grunt and a command. So you reload the cart, by hand, again. And this time someone decides to ride it for balance. Bad idea. Halfway back, the cart hits another bump. The rider goes flying and lands face first in the gravel like a sack of regret. He stands up, missing a tooth. Nobody laughs. Not because it isn't funny, but because you're all too tired to waste the energy. When you return, it's time to lay the rudest layer. That means breaking the stones down further, smashing head-sized rocks into fist-sized pieces. How? By throwing them at other rocks until something gives. You wish you were joking. You crouch. Pick up a rock. Slam it against another. Repeat. It's loud. It's numbing. It's the sound of civilization, they say. but it feels like the sound of your soul cracking one pebble at a time. Suddenly a figure approaches, robes, ink-stained hands. It's an engineer, a real one. He's here to observe. He doesn't pick up anything, doesn't sweat. He squints, jots something on a wax tablet, and walks off with a self-important nod, like he's just done the heavy lifting of the empire. You imagine throwing a stone at him. Historians still debate whether Roman engineers spent more time supervising or simply showing up for ceremonial inspections. Whatever the truth, you'd settle for one of them picking up a shovel just once. The sun sinks, but you don't stop until the overseer blows the whistle or collapses. Tonight, it's the whistle. You stagger back to camp, arms limp, eyes raw, and find that someone's taken your straw mat. Again, you sleep, sitting up, leaning against a cartwheel, hoping your spine forgives you someday. The stars come out. You dream of being a stone, not because it's poetic, but because at least stones don't have to move themselves. Your morning starts with someone screaming about salt. Apparently, 2 men fought over the last pinch of yesterday's ration, and now one of them has a broken nose. The other, he's crying not from guilt, but because he dropped his hard-won prize into the mud and can't find it anymore. You meanwhile are summoned to join the surveying crew. At first it sounds promising, maybe a lighter day. Maybe you'll get to walk around and point at things with a stick. But no, that job goes to him. The surveyor, the man, the myth, the sleeveless wonder with calf-length sandals, impossibly white tunic, and a face that hasn't seen sunburn once in his life. Your job is to follow behind him and correct the terrain. And if you're wondering what correct the terrain means, it means whatever the surveyor decides it means at that moment. Usually it means digging. Sometimes it means filling. Occasionally it means just standing still while he uses your head as a landmark. The Roman groma, that surveying tool he carries, looks simple. A vertical pole with cross arms and dangling weights. But in his hands, it might as well be the scepter of Jupiter himself. He lifts it, tilts his chin, squints dramatically into the distance, and then declares, "We go straight." You look, there's a hill. You look again, there's a big hill. You try to do the math. Surely there's a path around the hill, something reasonable. But no, straight is the rule, always straight. Because Roman engineers believe that any deviation from a straight path is weakness, or treason, or maybe just inconvenient to the geometry. Historians still argue whether the Roman obsession with straightness was purely military or also psychological, a demonstration of imperial power carved permanently into the land. You don't care. You just know you now have to help cut through a hill. To do this, your team starts hacking away with tools that wouldn't pass as garden decorations in modern times. Picks, shovels, hands, knees, whatever works. Dust rises like it's trying to escape the labor itself. You cough so much your ribs start to feel like someone else's. And the surveyor, he just keeps staring, occasionally adjusting his groma by a millimeter. One guy tries to joke, calls him the pointer of impossible dreams. The surveyor doesn't laugh. He doesn't blink. You suspect he sleeps upright, whispering elevation differential in his dreams. Midday hits. The sun climbs and you climb with it, because of course the hill isn't done. Not even close. Every swing of your tool removes an insultingly small amount of dirt. You try singing a tune to make it go faster, but the lyrics dissolve into wheezing halfway through the second verse. Someone suggests using fire to soften the rock, a Roman trick borrowed from earlier cultures. You pile wood, light it, and watch it burn. When the rocks glow red, you douse them with water. They hiss, crack, and splinter. It's the most satisfying sound you've heard in weeks. Quirky tidbit. This thermal fracturing method, fire and water, was used to build parts of roads through mountainous areas where dynamite didn't yet exist because Romans, shockingly, did not have dynamite. You watch as chunks fall away, making a path inch by inch. The crew begins to cheer up. There's rhythm again. There's even a joke about how someday people will walk this road wearing sandals and not think twice about what it cost. Someone mutters that you should carve your names into the stones. No one does, of course. You're too tired and graffiti gets you whipped. You break for lunch. It's the same as breakfast, same as dinner. But someone found a half-roasted beetle and added it to the pot. That counts as seasoning now. The surveyor returns with a message. There's been a revision. Apparently, one of the angles is imprecise by 2 degrees. So yes, all the work done this morning, it needs to shift slightly. To the left. You stare at him. He blinks. You briefly consider becoming a surveyor through the time-honored method of identity theft, but instead you pick up your shovel, because that's the job, and because the other option is punishment detail, which usually involves digging somewhere else, but deeper and with more bugs. You and the team dig late, past sundown. Lanterns flicker like fireflies, possessed by exhaustion. By the time you're done, you've made a trench so straight it could be used to measure time. Your legs shake. Your hands are numb. But the surveyor nods. That's the closest thing you'll ever get to a thank you. Historians still argue whether Roman laborers were compensated fairly for road work, whether some were volunteers, freedmen seeking status, or simply conscripts trapped in an unspoken chain. You suspect it's a mix of all three. Some dream of glory, others of food. Most just want it to end. You walk back to camp. The stars are blurred, your vision stained by dust and smoke. Someone sings softly in Latin, off-key, but beautifully broken. Your shoulder aches from the day's toil, but you're back, somehow straighter than before. You think of the road, not yet finished, not even close, but already stretching behind you like a scar the empire refuses to hide. The stink hits you before you open your eyes. Swamp duty. You don't need anyone to say it. The scent of moldy water and ancient decay does the talking. It seeps into your clothes, into your hair, into places you didn't know could absorb smells. You wake up tasting rot and regret. Rome wants a road through this marsh, not around, not over, through. Why? Because of course. Because detouring would be weak. And if there's one thing the Roman Empire never admits to being, it's flexible. So now you're standing ankle deep in a puddle that may or may not be alive. There are frogs the size of your fist and bugs that seem to be in a relationship with your blood. You swatted a mosquito and miss only for it to bring 4 friends back for round 2. Your task today, drain part of the swamp to lay the statumen, the bottom foundation stones again. But the swamp has opinions. And those opinions are absolutely not. The technique: dig trenches to redirect water, stack gravel, lay logs if necessary. This is where Roman road builders sometimes used wooden piles, vertical posts, hammered into the muck to stabilize the earth. You, however, just have a bucket and a prayer. The work is slow. Every shovel you lift returns full of mud and mystery. Things move in the soil. You don't ask what they are. Someone did yesterday. He hasn't spoken since. Historians still debate whether Roman engineers actually understood soil science or just threw everything at the marsh until something stopped sinking. Whatever the truth, the method is ugly but functional, mostly ugly. The local nickname for your crew is the Drenchers. Not flattering, not inaccurate. At midday, someone yells. You think it's a joke until you see him clawing at his ankle. A leech, fat and smug, clinging on like it pays rent. You've got 2 on your own calves. You pretend they're friendship bracelets. Lunch is swamp rice. Don't ask what that means. You eat it because hunger is louder than fear. Then it gets worse. Because after lunch, you're sent to probe the bog to find solid ground underneath the waterline by jabbing a stick repeatedly into the muck. It sounds simple. It isn't. First of all, the stick gets stuck. Then it disappears entirely. Then you fall in face first and discover that ancient wetlands smell like dead dreams and fermented goose droppings. There's no coming back from that. A centurion walks past holding a scroll and acting like this is all going to plan. You think about pushing him in, just for research. Quirky tidbit. Roman builders sometimes used fascines, bundles of sticks and reeds bound together to create a stable base across marshy terrain. You see some of these being assembled. They look like poorly rolled cigars, but they work, mostly. As the sun begins to lower, the air turns thick and green. Mosquitoes hum like tiny war drums. You slap one. It bursts. You feel nothing. Your clothes are permanently damp. Your skin is pruny. Your morale subterranean. One guy claims the swamp is cursed. Another swears he saw something wink at him from the water. A third just sings quietly to himself about dry socks and hot soup. No one laughs. Historians still argue whether Roman marsh roads lasted as long as the others. Some did, some didn't. Some disappeared, entirely swallowed by the very ground they tried to conquer. Like men, like pride. The sun disappears fast in the swamp. One moment you can see. The next you're surrounded by reeds and the low chuckle of frogs, mocking your life choices. You trudge back to camp. Shoes squish, socks squelch. You smell like sadness, but your section of road 3 feet longer than yesterday. Progress. That's what they call it. You've developed a new appreciation for rocks, not admiration, not affection, just a raw, aching awareness of how many there are and how many of them are in the way. Today is rock-breaking duty. Again, you arrive at the site and see the pile, a mountain of boulders, each one heavier than your sense of optimism. Rome needs gravel. Gravel needs stones. Stones need breaking. And your job is to introduce the stones to each other until they lose confidence in their structure. No iron picks today. Those were all taken by another team with better connections, or perhaps fewer disciplinary notes. Instead, you've got 2 options, a slightly flatter rock or a jagged one with a convenient handhold. You pick both and start smashing. You swing one stone down onto another with all the grace of a drunken gladiator. The sound is dull and mean, a thud that vibrates straight through your spine. It doesn't crack the stone, of course. It just makes it angry. You try again and again until your wrists buzz like a lyre string strung too tight. Historians still argue whether Roman crews used proper hammers for this or simply relied on brute force and desperation. Based on your morning so far, the answer is brute force, desperation, and peer pressure. The guy next to you hums a song that might be a prayer or a threat. He hasn't blinked in a while. Nearby, someone yells, "Watch out, too late." A chunk of rock flies and hits a man in the forehead. He doesn't go down, just stares, shrugs, and keeps working with blood dripping like punctuation down his nose. That's how you know he's been here too long. By midday, your arms are pudding. The pile is smaller, but not small. Your team is quieter than usual, probably because words require energy, and energy now costs more than Roman wine. You pause for water. It tastes faintly of rust, but it's wet, so you don't ask questions. Your hands shake so badly, you spill half of it on your tunic. You don't care. The stain will match the others. Quirky tidbit. Some Roman road crews reportedly heated stones with fire and doused them with cold water to encourage cracking. But that requires wood and fire, and someone not using the last of the fuel to cook half a mouse in a canteen lid. There's a break in the afternoon, a rare moment. You sit on a mostly flat slab and look around. A few men sleep where they collapsed. One whistles through cracked lips. You close your eyes and try to imagine something soft. Your mother's bread, a warm blanket, a road that curves. But no, you're back up again. Because now it's time to carry the broken stone. You fill wicker baskets. Not proper buckets. Wicker baskets, like you're about to harvest figs. You hoist one over your shoulder, and immediately the handle breaks. You pick up the pieces, refill it, and try again. Historians still debate how Roman roads managed to hold up so well for centuries. The secret layers, endless punishing layers. First statumen, then rudus, then nucleus, the fine-grained stuff. That's what your broken stones are becoming. The crushed remains of your labor compacted into the empire's nervous system. A centurion passes by. He nods once. That's high praise. Last week he just threw a pebble at someone for sneezing. You wonder if he's mellowing out or if you've just gone nose blind to the abuse. You finish hauling just as the sky turns a deep burnt orange. The rocks are stacked. The gravel is ready. And your body, it's made of nerves and dust now. Nothing else. One man collapses. Not dramatically. Just folds in half like a forgotten cloak. Two others carry him off. You say nothing. You're too tired to invent a eulogy. Quirky fact. There's graffiti in Pompeii that says, "I hate roads. I hate roadmen." You feel seen. You limp back to camp. Your hands are swollen. Your knuckles are split. But no one died today. Not fully, anyway. That counts as success. You can tell by the silence someone didn't make it back last night. No one says his name. No one asks where he is. His sleeping mat is already gone. Folded up. Reassigned. In this place, absence doesn't echo. It just gets swept into the dust with everything else. You rise slowly. Every joint protests. Your back feels like it's been hammered flat. Again. Today's assignment. A new stretch. Longer. Steeper. Heavier. And this time your crew's a little different. You notice it the moment you arrive. The men aren't speaking Latin. Not the way you know it anyway. It's rougher. Mixed. One man stares through you like he's somewhere else entirely. Another has fresh chains around his ankles. Not tight, but still chains. Welcome to the slave crew. Rome's roadwork machine isn't just built on backs like yours. It's built on backs without choices. Enslaved people, prisoners of war, condemned criminals. This is where they go, not to rot in a cell, to work. Historians estimate that a significant portion of Roman infrastructure was constructed by enslaved labor. Some were skilled, yes, engineers, craftsmen, but most were just thrown into crews like this expected to learn quickly or die anonymously. You're assigned to haul stones alongside one of them. He's wiry, quiet, doesn't meet your eyes, but he moves with frightening efficiency, like the body's on autopilot, like the mind left weeks ago and forgot to come back. The overseer barks something about quotas. You pretend to listen. You know the real message. Don't slow down. You lift. You carry. You set. And you watch. This crew doesn't talk much. They don't joke. They don't pace themselves. They work like ghosts trying to finish penance. One man has blood on his tunic. That's not his. No one mentions it. Mid-morning, one of the newer prisoners stumbles. Just once. Just a misstep. A guard walks over and hits him. Not hard. Not to injure. Just to remind. The man stands again. And the crew keeps going, quirky tidbit. In certain provinces, Rome sometimes rented enslaved workers from wealthy citizens for public works like human equipment, returned when worn. The wealthy even charged fees based on how likely the slave was to survive the contract. You try not to think about what your odds would be. By midday, the line between free and unfree blurs. You sweat the same, you bleed the same. But they don't have a name anymore. Just numbers, scratched into a wax slate. You catch sight of one, etched in deep. 793. You wonder what the 93 stands for. Lunch is quieter than usual. No stories, no banter. Just chewing. Mechanical. Rhythmic. The food tastes the same as always, like stale bread dipped in silence. The afternoon brings more hauling, and something worse, a landslide. Not dramatic, just a slow groaning shift in the earth. A section of filled dirt gives way. 2 men are buried up to the waist. One gets pulled out, the other doesn't. They dig for a bit, then stop. The overseer mutters about acceptable losses. The name is erased from the list. The mat is reassigned. Historians still argue whether Roman work crews followed safety protocols or if incidents like this were simply folded into the schedule. Given what just happened, you guess it was the latter. Near sundown, a new figure arrives. A priest, maybe, or a local elder. He speaks with the overseer, pointing at the line of the road, shaking his head. You catch a few words: sacred grove, forbidden ground, spirits. Apparently, you're building over something that shouldn't be touched. The overseer shrugs. The elder leaves. The digging continues. You notice some of the enslaved workers muttering as they work, quiet, rhythmic, almost like a chant. Not Latin. Older. Sharper. They throw salt into the earth behind them when the overseer isn't looking. Quirky fact: Roman crews were known to bury sacrificial animals or offerings beneath road foundations when crossing land considered sacred, both to appease local deities and to ward off misfortune. Today, all you've got is superstition and sweaty linen. You keep digging. The sun disappears. The ground seems quieter now. Too quiet. You lie down that night, next to a man who hasn't spoken all day. His hands are bleeding, his eyes are open. He blinks once every few minutes, like it's a luxury he can't afford. You don't ask his name, and he doesn't ask yours. You're not people out here. You're tools. You hear the ox before you see it. A wet, groaning breath in the distance. Then a hoof dragging against stone. Then another snort, thick, exhausted, and offended by its own workload. You round the bend, and there it is. A beast the size of a small hut, ribs like ladder-rungs eyes that say "I hate you" in every ancient dialect. Beside it, a cart. No, not a cart. A punishment on wheels. Wooden square and filled with slabs of stone, the weight of fallen gods. Today you're not digging, you're not smashing. You're hauling. With the ox. Not instead of the ox. With it. Because apparently the incline ahead is too steep, the cart too heavy, and the beast too old to pull it alone. So now it's you, 3 other men, and a creature who smells like damp leather and generational trauma, dragging literal tons of stone uphill because the road has to cut through a ridge. Why? You already know the answer, because Rome doesn't curve. The harness digs into your shoulder. The rope burns. You lean into it, feel your spine argue with itself, and you start to move an inch at a time. One of the other men groans. Another stumbles. The ox farts in protest. That is the soundscape of your life now. Historians still debate the average weight Roman oxen could haul. But whatever the textbooks say, it doesn't matter when you are now doing half the work. And the ox clearly is done trying. It keeps stopping, chewing air, giving you a side eye that says, "I didn't sign up for this either." Mid-morning heat rises. Your tunic clings to you like punishment. Someone tries to lighten the mood with a joke about 2-legged mules. No one laughs. Not because it's offensive, because no one has the breath. Quirky tidbit: Roman carts were typically 2-wheeled, not 4. This design made turning easier, but also meant balance was a nightmare. Lose that balance on a slope. The cart could roll sideways and crush everyone in its path. Guess what happens just before lunch? The ox twitches. A fly, maybe. A phantom itch. Doesn't matter. It stumbles, and the cart shifts. The whole load tilts left. The ropes strain, then snap. Stones tumble. One hits the dirt with a thud that shakes your teeth. Another cracks the edge of the newly laid path. Dust clouds rise, like the earth itself is cursing you. No one dies. But 3 men are down, nursing bruises and twisted ankles. You sit, panting arms limp, and watch the ox calmly walk to a patch of shade and lie down like it's on paid vacation. The overseer appears and sighs, not with sympathy, with disappointment, as if you ruined his afternoon. He orders the cart repacked, and if the stones are chipped, just chip 'em more. So you do, because that's what you do. Chip, pack, haul, repeat. By late afternoon, you're laying the stones on the summum dorsum, the road's final layer. These stones are special, flat, cut. They must be placed precisely, forming a tight, interlocking surface. No one tells you how to do it. You just watch the guy next to you and try not to place one upside down. Historians still argue whether Roman roads were built to last for centuries by design, or if they just got lucky with the materials and obsessive over-engineering. Either way, you're contributing to something that may outlive any of your descendants. You wonder if that matters, because right now, your back is screaming, your hands are raw, and your feet have developed new blisters under the old ones. The ox is still lounging in the shade. At dinner, someone toasts with a cup of watered-down wine and mutters, "To the dumbest empire with the smartest roads." You clink back without smiling, because it's true. Quirky fact: Roman engineers often used crushed pottery or bricks mixed into the upper layers of the road to help drainage. You saw one of those bricks today. It had a stamp on it, someone's name, a maker's mark, a little shout into history. You wonder if your name will end up anywhere but in the mud. That night you dream you're the ox, and for once the dream ends with you lying down, unbothered, unburdened, and blissfully ignored. The dust smells different here. It's warmer, chalkier, almost metallic. You squint up at the looming shape ahead. Black rock, jagged ridges, steam curling lazily from cracks in the earth. Someone whispers the name under their breath, like it might wake up and listen. Vesuvius, you're laying road near a volcano. Because of course you are. The army needs a quick supply route between Neapolis and the coastal camps, and the fastest path naturally slices across the volcanic foothills like someone dared the gods to intervene. Historians still debate just how many roads were built directly across active fault lines and volcanic terrain. You don't care about that. You care about the smell of sulfur in your teeth and the ominous warmth radiating up through the soles of your sandals. Today's task, ash layer stabilization. You have to dig through unstable layers of volcanic debris, soft, shifting, almost spongy, and reinforce it with gravel wood and whatever doesn't sink on contact. It's like building a road on a sponge that sometimes belches steam. Quirky tidbit: Roman engineers sometimes use pozzolana, a volcanic ash from the region, as a key ingredient in road cement. It created hydraulic concrete able to harden even underwater. Genius. You're not making concrete today, though. You're just trying not to vanish into the earth like that one guy yesterday. You mark the place with a stick. No one talks about it. The heat rises fast. Not sun. Heat. Ground. Heat. Every tool you touch is already warm. Every rock seems to be sweating. You try to sit for a moment and find your tunic sticking to the soil. It's like the land wants to eat you slowly. Then comes the tremor, just a wobble, a shiver beneath your feet. No one panics, which is maybe worse, because that means it's normal. The overseer mutters about keeping pace. The stones aren't going to place themselves. He smells like overconfidence and undercooked beans. You follow orders because there's nothing else to follow. By mid-morning, the wind shifts. Ash from the higher slopes starts blowing in gentle, mocking gusts. Not enough to choke you, just enough to make your eyes water and your skin itch. It coats your lips, tastes like regret. You stop for water. It's warm. It tastes like metal and goat fur. You drink anyway. Suddenly there's shouting from uphill. A rock slide. Not big. Just one of those miniature avalanches of scorched pebbles and broken dreams. You dodge most of it. The man next to you doesn't. He gets pelted and drops hard. When you check, his nose is bleeding. So is his pride. You hand him a rag. He grins with 3 teeth and mumbles, "That's 4 times this week. 5th one's free." Somehow you both laugh. Later, you see someone placing offerings by a boulder, small tokens, bread, coins. even a carved piece of wood, a quiet plea for mercy. You look away, pretend you didn't see it. But when no one's looking, you drop a pebble of your own. Historians still argue whether the Roman road near Vesuvius was completed before the infamous eruption of 79 AD. What's clear is that Rome loved efficiency more than survival. You get back to work. Stones must be laid. Ash must be cleared. Every handful you scoop away feels like rearranging deck chairs on a flaming galley. Quirky fact: some Roman soldiers stationed near Vesuvius after construction wrote graffiti on roadside tavern walls. One scratch note simply read, "This place burns. You feel it. By the end of the day, your body is coated in gray. You look like a statue someone gave up carving. Every crease of your skin is filled with dust that might have once been mountain or animal or God. You collapse on a slab of cooling basalt. And for a second, it's almost comfortable. Almost. Until the steam hisses out from a nearby crack and you realize the ground is still breathing. You move to a different spot, just in case. It's the middle of the night when someone starts gagging. You bolt upright, or as close to upright as your body allows anymore. The smell hits you next, not the usual swamp rot or ox sweat. No, this is sharp, chemical, foul in a different way. Someone poisoned the well. Again. The water barrel stands near the edge of the encampment, wooden slats bound by rusting iron bands. Its contents, a sludge that used to be drinkable. Now the surface ripples with a greasy film, and the smell, like someone tried to stew socks and disappointment. By morning, 4 men are sick. 2 can't walk. 1's missing, just gone. And that means it's time for another camp meeting, a special kind of Roman performance where no one gets answers and everyone gets more work. The centurion shouts something about saboteurs, local cowards, and divine punishment for laziness. You and everyone else nod solemnly while thinking, who's dumb enough to poison people, building a road that no one asked for? Historians still argue whether local resistance movements targeted Roman road crews out of rebellion, superstition, or simple spite. Whatever the reason, your team now has to boil every drop of water and sleep in shifts. Sleep. Ha! Today's task, guard duty and ditch digging at the same time, because apparently someone's been stealing things too. Sandals, blankets. One man swears someone took the only spoon in the mess tent, which means either there's a very selective thief on the loose, or someone slowly losing his mind over cutlery. You're sent to deepen the defensive ditch around camp, a shallow trench meant to discourage bandits, wolves, or angry locals with slingshots. You dig in silence, sweat streaming down your back, trying not to think about how the ditch is mostly symbolic. After all, what kind of enemy wants to sneak into a camp full of coughing, limping skeletons in crusty tunics? Midday hits hard. The sun doesn't rise here. It lunges, You lower your head and keep shoveling gravel, clay, occasionally a lizard. You toss each aside like old memories. Quirky tidbit Roman camps often used moats and earth embankments even for temporary road crews. Engineers would mark out squares with chalk or string and expect defenses to be built overnight. You do it with sticks and guesswork. At one point, you catch movement in the trees. You freeze. Someone else does too. You both lock eyes with a shadow, tall, thin, and definitely not part of your crew. Then it bolts. No one chases, because that would require energy. Instead, someone reports it, and two men with spears wander vaguely in the same direction before returning to say, "Must have been nothing." You're promoted to night watch, which just means you get to stay awake longer and squint into the dark while your legs twitch from 14 hours of trench work. You lean on a spear and count stars, then forget what number you got to, then start over. By the time your watch ends, your eyes hurt more than your hands, which is impressive. You sleep for 3 hours, then someone wakes you by shouting, "Where are my boots?" Turns out the thief is back, and bold. This time they took 4 pairs, one of which belonged to a man with 6 toes, which makes resale questionable. The overseer is furious. He threatens to burn all the shoes so no one gets to have any. You suspect he's been drinking the water, or missing it. Quirky fact: some Roman road crews employed military scouts to patrol nearby forests during construction, but in remote regions, they were often replaced by paranoid laborers with sticks. That night you fall asleep with one eye open and your sandals tied to your wrist. In your dream, you're back at the well. But this time it's empty. And for some reason, you're relieved. The road is done. Not all of it, of course, just this one long, punishing, soul-eating stretch. A mile, maybe 2. But it looks perfect. A ribbon of stone slicing through hills and marshes like a scar that refuses to fade. Straight as sin, smooth as a centurion's lie. You should be proud, but all you feel is numb. And then the army shows up, hundreds of them, boots, polished armor, gleaming shields, shining like they've never known dirt. They march in perfect formation, 1 footfall per heartbeat, the sound echoing off the stones you helped lay. And that's when it hits you. The road isn't for you. It was never for you. It's a weapon, not a bridge, not a passage, not some romantic notion of connectivity or civilization. It's a logistical sword designed to slice through terrain and resistance with equal efficiency. It exists so that legions can march faster, supply wagons can move smoother, and rebellions can be crushed quicker. You step aside as they pass. No one makes eye contact. You're part of the scenery now, just another peasant with a shovel sweating beside a monument to imperial ambition. Quirky tidbit Roman military roads were often built with such precision that they allowed an entire legion, 5,000 soldiers, to move up to 20 miles per day. On your best day, you dug about 5 feet. Perspective. You're ordered to inspect the integrity of the new segment, which means walking back and forth for hours, tapping stones, checking for movement, and re-leveling the occasional slab. You do this with a long stick and a shorter temper. Behind you, the officers nod approvingly. In front of you, the horizon stretches out like a dare. By midday, the legions are long gone, but their dust remains choking the air, coating your face, settling between your teeth. You spit. It comes out gray. Then the next crew arrives. Fresh bodies, clean tunics, confident steps. They're here to continue the road. You watch them stretch, laugh, joke about how hard the work might be. One of them sees you, dusty, bleeding, limping, and asks, "Was it that bad?" You say nothing, because the only honest answer would take hours to explain. Instead, you show him a crooked finger and walk away. Historians still argue whether Roman roads created lasting cultural integration or simply sped up colonization. You're leaning toward the latter, especially when you see a local farmer standing near the edge of the road, shaking his head like the ground itself betrayed him. The rest of the day is spent filling in gaps, clearing debris, reinforcing drainage ditches that will probably clog in the first storm. The camber, that slight rise in the center of the road, designed to shed water, is off by a few inches. You correct it. No one thanks you. Quirky fact, Roman road crews sometimes placed curse tablets beneath milestones or foundation stones, thin sheets of lead, inscribed with hexes, insults, or petty grievances. You consider making one. Just a short note. May this road stub the toe of every senator who walks it. You eat your dinner alone, not because you're antisocial, because you can't stand the sound of anyone calling this work important. You lie down beside the road on a pile of unused gravel. It's almost comfortable, like lying on the body of a familiar enemy. And just before sleep takes you, you whisper something absurd to the stones. Don't forget me. Because you know Rome already has. You've made peace with sand. You no longer curse it when it gets in your food, your eyes, or the folds of your tunic. You no longer notice when it scrapes the raw skin between your toes or works its way into your hair, like it's moving in permanently. It's just there, like hunger, like heat, like the ache in your knees that never really sleeps. You're in the desert now. Rome wants a road through the outer provinces, somewhere between inhospitable and are you sure there's even a place to go? The kind of terrain that looks flat until you're walking it, and then suddenly it's all sinkholes, dunes, and sun-dried bones. Your new assignment, surface smoothing. It sounds gentle, civilized even. It is not. The road here is being paved with sandstone, shipped in chunks from a quarry 3 days away. Your job is to chip each slab to match the curvature of the land, then fit it into place with barely a whisper of space between. You do this while squinting into a sun that feels like it's personally invested in your dehydration. No clouds, no trees, no shade. The only protection is a strip of linen tied around your forehead, like a sad excuse for a helmet. You tug it tighter and get back to work, your hammer tapping in rhythm with your heartbeat, a heartbeat that's starting to sound more like a warning signal. Quirky tidbit Roman engineers sometimes covered desert roads with white stones to reflect sunlight and keep the surface cooler. You suspect this was done less for worker comfort, and more so, generals didn't sweat through their tunics while inspecting. Halfway through the morning, a dust devil rolls in. Not a big one, just a small spinning tower of sand that kicks up pebbles and curses, and the occasional empty water skin. One man screams as it hits him in the face and knocks his hat off. Everyone laughs until it slams into the cart and sends 2 slabs tumbling off into a ditch. You all dig them out in silence. By midday, you've sweated out everything but your personality. You lick your lips. Dust. Again. Your skin feels like it's been scraped with dry wheat. You take a sip from your flask and get one blessed mouthful before someone shouts. A man has collapsed. No warning, no noise. He just drops. His face hits the stone with a dull thump that echoes a little too long. You rush over. He's breathing, but barely. The medic does a quick check and shakes his head. Too dry. You all nod, then carry him to a shaded corner behind the stone stack. You lay him down gently. He doesn't open his eyes. Historians still argue whether Roman desert roads were practical long-term or simply displays of imperial muscle. This stretch feels more like a dare than a necessity. You haven't seen a traveler in days, except for the lizards. They dart between your tools, flick their tongues at your misery, then vanish. One climbs onto a half-placed slab and seems to judge your progress. You name him Marcus. He does not care. The afternoon task is alignment. You and 2 others kneel beside each slab and drag lengths of twine soaked in olive oil, a crude but effective way to keep lines straight even in the wind. The rope sticks to your fingers. You curse. The man next to you keeps muttering, "It's too hot to see straight." You agree, but the rope doesn't care. You finish 10 feet of road. It takes 6 hours. Quirky fact. To measure distances, Roman crews often used a hodometer, a kind of ancient odometer, with chimes that rang every 1,000 paces. You've never seen one. You just count your footsteps and hope Rome believes you. The sun starts to set, which means you still have 2 hours left. Out here, darkness doesn't bring relief. It brings cold. Sudden, sharp, mocking cold. Your skin, still raw from sunburn, now tightens under the breeze, like it's trying to shrink away from the night. You finish laying the last slab. It's slightly crooked. You try to fix it, and your hammer slips. Your thumb takes the hit. You don't scream. Just hiss. Long and slow. You hold your hand under your tunic and wait for the pain to plateau. Then you get up and keep working, because what else is there? You return to camp with sand in your ears and gravel in your boots. Someone left a pot of lentils near the fire. They're cold. They taste like despair. You eat 2 bowls. That night you dream of rain, not a storm, just a drizzle. And not because you're thirsty, but because for one beautiful second it would make this place quiet. The visitor arrives just after sunrise. He's mounted, of course, on a horse that looks fed, brushed, and vaguely ashamed to be out here. His cloak is clean. His sandals are polished. His scrolls are tied in neat little bundles, like he's here to host a philosophy seminar, rather than inspect a worksite filled with mud flies and men with faces carved by dust. A Roman inspector, the worst kind, one who smiles. You and your crew are lined up like rusting tools, backs straight, eyes down. The overseer practically vibrates with anticipation, trying to look busy while somehow also being spotless. The inspector dismounts and strolls along the new stretch of road, occasionally crouching to tap a stone or run his fingers along the edge of the ditch. He hums. Then he starts asking questions, not about the labor, not about injuries, not about the well that's still tasting slightly of frog. He wants to know, why are the mile markers slightly off-center? You blink, because your crew had to reset them twice after the last storm, because the donkey carrying the measurement tools bolted, because one of the markers sank overnight in the rain-soaked clay. But mostly because no one cared. You say none of this. You just nod. Historians still argue whether Roman inspectors were effective or simply ceremonial. Judging by the man currently scolding your team for the slight bowing in the gravel line, the ceremony is alive and well. The inspector scribbles notes. He calls for the camp's senior engineer, who is nowhere to be found, probably hiding behind a cart. You've seen a grown man crawl under tools to avoid eye contact with someone holding a wax tablet. Quirky tidbit: Roman roads often had statues of emperors or generals placed at intervals, both for propaganda and direction. You've laid bases for 3 of them so far. You've never seen the statues. You suspect they're stuck in a warehouse somewhere, waiting for someone to finish chiseling the emperor's left ear. After lunch, which is boiled beans and a prayer, you return to work with extra eyes on you. The inspector doesn't leave. He just lingers. You hear him whisper something to the overseer. Why is that man limping? The overseer looks at you, frowns, and says, old injury. You got it last week. But fine. You continue smoothing the ditch wall with your one good hand while trying not to visibly bleed from the other. You could complain. You don't. The inspector would just call it disruption of morale. Later, he delivers a short speech to the crew. He calls the road a triumph of discipline, a symbol of Roman order, and a testament to the power of structure. He does not mention the 3 men who collapsed this week, the fact that the drainage system floods every time someone sneezes, the sleeping quarters that smell like cooked onions, and mildew divorce. He finishes with Rome, thanks you, then rides away. And Rome is silent. No one claps. No one speaks. You all just return to your tasks like bees under a torch. You know this part of the empire is only still expanding because men like you are breaking in the ground one blister at a time, not with praise, not with pay, with presence, your presence. Quirky fact. Some Roman road inspectors were required to submit written evaluations to the Senate. These reports would then be stored in archives, meaning your backache might exist in some wax scroll next to a debate on grain taxes. Back at camp, you sit in the shade of a collapsed supply tent and massage your wrist. Someone mutters, "Do you think the inspector noticed the drainage crack?" Someone else replies, "I think he noticed my missing toe and wrote it up as uneven stance." You laugh. It's the kind of laugh that leaks out sideways, more cough than joy. But it's something. As the sun sets, you look out over the stretch of road you helped build. From this angle, it really does look clean, straight, unbreakable, a perfect illusion, built by people who aren't allowed to leave footprints on it. The marker reads Mile 7, which would be impressive if you hadn't started at mile 2. That means you've laid 25 miles of this cursed thing. Not alone, of course, but your hands have touched every layer, every ditch, every jagged rock that didn't want to sit flat. Your sweat is in the mortar. Your skin is in the gravel. Your patience is somewhere back around mile 12. Today, the milestone itself is the task. You're digging the post hole, setting the base stone, and anchoring a sippus, the official Roman mile marker. These are supposed to be dignified, clean, perfectly centered, inscriptions carved to show distance origin and which emperor is currently pretending to know what a shovel is. You try to make it straight. You really do. But the ground shifts, the wind picks up, and the stone, it leans. Not a lot, just enough. The overseer scowls. Do it again. So you dig the hole deeper. Historians still debate whether the mile markers were more for travelers or bureaucrats, a way to map control, keep tabs on shipments, calculate taxes. You know one thing for sure, they are not for the people who build them. No one needs a marker to find misery. Misery finds you. Quirky tidbit. Some sippy bear curses etched in small script against vandals, thieves, or those who dare deface the emperor's name. One even reads, "May Mars break the legs of whoever moves this stone." You're tempted to move it just to test that theory. You finally get it upright, level, centered. The overseer nods. Then he hands you a brush and chisel. Time to carve. You're no sculptor. Your letters wobble. Your spacing is a disaster. Halfway through, your hand cramps, and the C in Caesar comes out looking like a question mark. You try to fix it. You make it worse. Now it reads something like seesaw. You step back, sigh. The overseer shrugs. Close enough. By midday, it's time to dig another drainage channel, an open gutter running parallel to the road, designed to redirect rainwater before it destroys everything you've spent 3 weeks building. It's the kind of preventative task that feels deeply insulting in a place where it hasn't rained in a month. Still, Rome insists. So, you dig. One man jokes that the next stretch of road will include gutters for tears. No one disagrees. Then comes the inspection team. again. But this time, they're just passing through, mounted, armored, smug. They glance at the new milestone, smirk at the crooked sea, and ride on. One of them throws a coin behind him like he's feeding pigeons. It lands in the mud. You leave it there. Quirky fact, Roman milestones were so standardized that later archaeologists can track road projects by which emperor's name appears where, which means centuries from now, someone might look at your crooked carving and say, "Ah, yes, the late coughing period." Back at camp, someone starts talking about retirement. He says he heard of a man who finished 30 miles and was given a plot of land near the coast, chickens, a grapevine, quiet mornings. Everyone listens like it's a myth, like it's bedtime nonsense told to keep workers from walking into the sea. You lie down beside a stack of unused stones. One has your name scratched into it not for honor, just so no one steals your sitting rock. That night your dream is different. You're walking along the road, alone, no tools, no dust, no overseers, and the mile markers, they're all blank. Just smooth stone, waiting. It starts with a drop. You barely notice it at first. A faint plop against your arm so light it could be a bug or your own sweat falling backward. Then another, then 100 more. Rain. At first, it's relief. Honest, cold sky scent relief. You tilt your face upward and let the drops roll across your sunburnt skin. The men around you do the same, some smiling, some too stunned to smile. One man actually weeps. You pretend not to notice. But the rain doesn't stop. 15 minutes and the road starts to glisten. 30 minutes, and it begins to swim. Because here's the thing they don't tell you. In the barracks, freshly laid roads, especially the nucleus and summum dorsum layers, hate sudden water. The fine gravel turns to slurry. The mortar washes out. The neatly packed trenches you spent 3 days digging, they become rivers. Historians still argue whether Roman drainage systems were uniformly applied across the empire. Judging from your boots currently floating away, the answer here is absolutely not. You scramble to cover loose tools with cloth. Someone tries to move the cart uphill, but the wheels sink halfway, and now it's just a landmark. You grab sandbags. Someone else starts yelling about the ditch collapsing. They're not wrong. A full 10 feet of embankment gives way with a horrible slurp. Stones tumble. Mud follows. One man dives forward to rescue the last intact milestone. He succeeds mostly. The G in Augustus now looks like it's sobbing. Quirky tidbit Roman engineers sometimes lined ditches with fired clay pipes or loose bricks to prevent collapse in high rainfall regions. You have neither. Just panic rope and wet tunics. The overseer reappears, of course, hooded, dry. He surveys the scene like a playwright reviewing an underwhelming tragedy. He mumbles, "Fix it," then disappears again. That's the moment you realize something important. This road will never stay finished. Not really, because the empire demands permanence, But nature and physics and gravity and water aren't interested. So you bail. Literally. You grab a broken helmet and start scooping water out of a trench like your job depends on it, because it does. Others follow. It becomes a rhythm. Bail. Dump. Bail. Curse. Then someone screams. You turn expecting the worst, but it's just a tent blown completely off its stakes and sailing down the road like a ghost with bad aim. It passes 2 stunned oxen wraps around a tree and tears in half. You almost laugh. Almost. Then the wind hits. Not just gusts, not breezes. Walls of air, pushing rain sideways into your ears and under your eyelids. Your body, already soaked, starts to shiver. That's when the command comes, reinforce the embankment. Because, of course, you drag sacks of gravel uphill. They weigh double now, packed with water and mud. You can't see your own hands through the fog. Someone slides down the slope and rolls to a stop in a puddle the size of a bathhouse. They lie there, then raise a thumb. You nod. Work continues. Quirky fact, some sections of Roman road had gravel shoulders or sloped sides designed to direct water away from the core. You tried that here. It didn't matter. The hill disagreed. By nightfall, you're standing in a trench that looks suspiciously like a moat. The rain hasn't stopped. The firewood's soaked. Dinner is postponed. You sit on a pile of stone-drenched teeth, chattering, and try to remember what dry feels like. The man next to you mutters, "Maybe the gods are crying." You reply, or laughing, because this feels personal. The road that was supposed to conquer the land is now being swallowed by it. And somehow, you're still here, holding a rope, sinking an anchor, pretending that one more sandbag will make a difference. Your hands are blistered, your knees are raw, your spirit is well tattered would be generous. And yet somehow, today gets worse, because today is rest day, which in Roman road crew terms means you won't be building road, you'll just be digging latrines, yes. Your reward for surviving a week of rainstone and political indifference is to spend the morning carving out a long trench for other men to relieve themselves in, and not just anywhere downwind from camp, but uphill from the drainage ditch, because whoever chose this site clearly wanted to start a plague. You sigh, then dig. Historians still argue whether Roman latrine design was influenced by military sanitation or just cruel geometry. Some even point to their communal stone benches with sponge-on-a-stick systems as signs of hygiene innovation. You're not impressed, especially since your latrine is just mud and a log someone wedged between 2 rocks. Quirky tidbit. Some Roman forts had permanent latrine buildings with flowing water and proper drainage. You, however, are digging a 3-foot hole with a broken shovel and a guy beside you who whistles while he works. His tune is off-key. Your rage is not. Once the trench is done, you line it with gravel, not because it's sanitary, because the overseer said so. Then you build a modest privacy wall with half-rotted planks, some reeds, and a prayer. It leans. You let it. The sun's out again. Not kindly. It bakes the damp soil into a sticky soup. Your boots suck at the ground like they're trying to stay behind. After lunch, boiled barley slightly less gritty than usual, you're assigned tool repair. This means sorting through a heap of bent picks, snapped handles, and mystery fragments from a collapsed wheelbarrow. You pick one up and try to hammer it straight. It resists. You consider naming it Senator. Mid-hammer, a junior overseer approaches. He's new, clean, still believes things matter. He squats beside you and says, "You ever think about what we're doing? I mean, really think about it. This road, it's going to connect people. It's going to make lives better." You stare at him, then gesture to your bandaged thumb, the fly-covered latrine trench, and the stone you passed this morning that still smells like sulfur from last week's storm. He looks disappointed. Then he walks off muttering something about vision. You go back to hammering. Quirky, fact-tool repair stations were often mobile, set up in tents or wagons and manned by part-time blacksmiths. Today the station is a tree stump and your knee. The afternoon drifts by in a haze of minor injuries and splinters. Someone slices their palm open, trying to fix a wheel spoke. Another man gets bit by a lizard. A lizard. It doesn't even seem sorry. By early evening, you're exhausted, but still not done. The water buckets need cleaning. And by cleaning, they mean rinsing with more dirty water and hoping the flies move on voluntarily. You do it. Because the alternative is being assigned to night patrol, which tonight includes watching the latrines in case anyone gets ideas. You finish your shift just in time to catch the cook tossing scraps into the fire. He offers you something crispy. You don't ask what it is. You eat it. The sky is clear again. Stars scattered wide. No moon. Just wind. You sit by the road, watching a single torch flicker in the distance as someone stumbles back to camp. You realize something. Even rest days aren't rest when your body is a list of unfinished repairs. Your hands throb. Your back hums. Your eyelids weigh 100 pounds each, but you feel still for once. Because no one is yelling, no one is measuring, no one is asking for anything. It's just you, the road, and the distant sound of someone tripping over the latrine log. You smile. A little. There's a tree line ahead. That alone would be noteworthy. After weeks of gravel dust and terrain that seemed personally offended by your presence, the sight of actual trees feels like a hallucination. Green, swaying, providing shade, not as a taunt, but as an invitation. But your crew isn't smiling, because the path ahead cuts straight through it. A sacred grove. You don't need anyone to tell you that. You can feel it in the way the wind quiets, the way the birdsong thins into something like whispering. Even the bugs seem more respectful here, flying lower, landing softer. But Rome doesn't pause for omens. The surveyor expression, neutral, as always, confirms the trajectory with his groma taps, his wax tablet, and announces the verdict. We go through just like that. Historians still argue whether Roman engineers respected local spiritual sites. In some provinces, they made detours or even held ceremonies. In others, they paved right over them with the confidence of a civilization that believed its gods were stronger. Your crew falls silent. The local guide, a wrinkled man with sharp eyes and no patience, warns of spirits. He speaks in low tones, invoking names that don't translate neatly into Latin. He draws a line in the dirt and says, "That side is safe. This side is watched. Everyone steps over it anyway." Today's job, tree removal, not just clearing branches, felling ancient trunks, many of them wide enough to shade 10 men. You and 3 others are given a saw, a handful of wedges, and a warning. Don't cut the marked ones. You don't ask why. You see the marks, scratched symbols, wrapped in rope bones hanging like bells. You pretend you never saw them. You aim for the unmarked trees. Mid-morning, someone tries to cut one anyway. He laughs, shrugs, and swings his axe. It bounces off. Dead center. Just thunk and nothing. No splintering, no give. The man blinks. Swings again, same result. He doesn't try a third time. Quirky tidbit. In some provinces, road crews carried sacrificial animals, goats, chickens, or even pigs to perform rituals when paving through holy ground. You don't have animals. You have blisters and a bad feeling. By midday, the first tree falls. It groans as it goes, like something being awakened rather than killed. The sound echoes strangely. Long, wrong. No one cheers. You haul the branches aside, stack the logs, burn the brush. But the air feels heavy now, like it's watching. Then weird things start happening. Your saw goes missing. The rope used to bind logs frays twice. Someone finds animal tracks circling the tents, but they don't match anything local. The prints look wrong, like a goat, but backward. You tell yourself it was just the rain warping the shape, even though it hasn't rained. That night, someone whispers in their sleep, not words, just sounds, rhythmic, almost musical. You throw a blanket over your head and pretend it's fine. The next morning, the foundations begin. This stretch is slated for heavy paving, deep trenches, layered stone, reinforced with lime and ash. But when you dig, the soil resists. It crumbles, shifts, slides back into itself like it's trying to undo you. You dig again. It returns. The overseer calls it loose terrain. You call it something else. Eventually, you set a layer of statumen, large stones placed carefully. You tap them into place, muttering to yourself, not a prayer, not quite, just insurance. Quirky fact, some road crews embedded tiny offerings into sacred crossings, bits of metal rings, even coins, just in case. You slide a chipped bronze button under one stone. No one sees. You return to camp and find someone missing. His boots are still there, his tools, but no sign of the man himself. They look for an hour, then two, then they stop. Because Rome doesn't halt for ghosts. You sleep that night with your boots on, just in case. You're not entirely sure when your feet stopped being feet. They still resemble them, more or less. But now they feel like wet sacks of grain someone forgot on a stone shelf for a week. Numb in the morning, burning by midday, pulsing like tiny hammers by night. It started 2 weeks ago. First the skin peeled, then the cracks appeared, then the smell, foot rot. The official term is trench foot, though you've never seen a trench that didn't cause it. It's a result of constant dampness, friction, and despair. The Roman word for it. You think it's, why is this happening-ious? You try drying your sandals by the fire. They smolder. You wear them anyway. The medic offers vinegar. He says it might help. He also says not to scream too loudly when you apply it. You don't. You just whisper obscenities in every dialect you've learned since being stationed here. Your legs ache. Your calves are tight. Your thighs feel like they've been chewed. But it's your feet that betray you. Every step a negotiation, every shift in terrain, a possible mutiny. Today your assignment is culvert repair. A drainage tunnel has collapsed under the last rain, and the road above is beginning to sag like a sad loaf of bread. Your job is to crawl inside, assess the damage, and dig it out. From the inside, quirky tidbit Roman engineers used stone vaulting techniques to build culverts strong enough to support carts and marching legions. They often buried them deep, reinforcing with gravel and lime. Unfortunately, this one was built too close to a tree root system that now looks like a vengeful squid. You shimmy in, bent double, breathing the scent of damp soil and ancient mildew. The tunnel drips. You tell yourself it's just water. You reach the blockage, a mess of collapsed stone mud and what might be a lizard skeleton. You dig with your hands. The shovel is too long. Your fingers sink into muck that tries to keep them. You pull harder. The dirt sucks back. Behind you, someone lights a torch. The flickering orange glow makes the tunnel seem smaller, more urgent. You keep digging, and then your foot slips. Just a little, but enough. You fall sideways, hit a stone, feel something pop in your shoulder. You yelp sharp and undignified, and the man behind you shouts. You shout back, "I'm fine," even though you're not sure which way is up anymore. You drag yourself out after another 20 minutes. Your shoulder screams. Your feet ache. Your soul sighs. Historians still argue whether Roman laborers were given medical leave or simply rotated to less miserable tasks. You suspect the policy is, if you're not dead, you're eligible for more dirt. Back at camp, the medic wraps your shoulder in wool, soaked with wine and ash. It smells like punishment. He suggests rest. The overseer suggests digging with your left hand. You compromise by digging slower. The next day, It's fungal inspection duty, not glamorous, not even official. Just your crew poking around the tents and water barrels for signs of creeping mold and rot. One man finds mushrooms growing behind the mess cart. He eats one. He spends the next 2 hours hugging a rock and reciting military oaths backward. Quirky fact, Roman camps had strict sanitation protocols, at least on paper. In practice, when half the crew is limping and the other half is hallucinating, the rules go out the window. You clean your boots. Again. You scrub the lining with salt. Again, you dry them over the fire. Again, they still squish. Your feet are now something else. Wrinkled. Pale. Like they've seen things. You consider naming them separately. Maybe they'd behave better with identities. That night someone sings, not a song of hope or camaraderie, just a sad, slow lullaby in a language you don't recognize. It drifts across camp like smoke. You sit by the fire, tunic wrapped around your shoulders, watching the road in the moonlight. It's beautiful from a distance, clean, eternal. But you know better. You know it's made of feet, thousands of them, bleeding, broken, buried under gravel. You shift your weight and wince. Then you smile. Because tomorrow you get to do it again. The celebration is short-lived. You'd finally reached the end of a segment. Your team had packed the last layer of gravel, polished the summum dorsum, and placed the final flat stone with the reverence of a funeral rite. The overseer even gave a nod. Not a compliment, just a nod. But in road-building terms, that's basically a standing ovation. Then the engineer arrived, with a scroll and a smile you didn't trust. The emperor apparently had changed his mind. The road needs to shift, not just a detour, not just a fork. The entire segment, all 500 meters, must now be moved 12 feet to the left. You stare at the engineer like he's speaking Etruscan. He doesn't blink. It's an aqueduct alignment issue, he says, as if that explains anything. Historians still argue how much imperial micromanagement actually impacted infrastructure projects. Some say field engineers had autonomy. Others claim changes like this were common based on politics, prophecy, or the emperor's mood after lunch. You suspect it was all three. You and the crew do not argue, because arguing doesn't move stones. You just sigh. Then begin disassembly. At first you think it'll be quick. Just pull up the top stones, reset the gravel, adjust the base, but no, because each layer depends on the one below it, and shifting anything risks structural failure, which means start over entirely. You begin prying up the flat stones. They resist. Naturally. They were meant to endure centuries of marching, not you and a bent crowbar. Quirky tidbit. Some Roman roads were built so tightly that plants couldn't grow between the stones for decades. You personally helped lay some of those. Now you're trying to undo your own legacy with a stick and a bad attitude. As the stones come up, you realize something. You remember each one. You remember which you placed crooked, Which one split your thumbnail? Which one you dropped on your foot twice? It's like reverse nostalgia. You hate every one of them, but still it feels wrong to lift them again. The gravel comes next. You dig into it like sand that betrayed you. The dust chokes your throat, coats your teeth. You find a small token buried in the fill a coin, not Roman, maybe Celtic. You hand it to the overseer. He pockets it, then tells you to keep working. Next is the nucleus, the compacted lime-mixed layer that held everything together. It's the worst to remove, like chipping up dry cement with your fingernails. You try using a pry bar. It snaps. By noon, you've moved 12 feet left. You've also moved your soul 12 feet further into exhaustion. You begin laying the new trench. It's harder now. The ground is less stable. There's a root system, a slight slope. Someone mutters, "Maybe that's why we didn't go this way the first time." No one answers, because they know. The answer is Rome. Quirky fact: some Roman milestones were reset multiple times in the same year due to boundary disputes between military regions. One record mentions a stone being moved 7 times. You wonder if the stone developed an identity crisis. You managed to relay half the stretch before sunset. It doesn't look the same, it doesn't feel the same. The original road had personality, imperfections, sweat woven into the layers. This one feels like a copy of regret smoothed too fast, packed too loose. You know it won't last. You know no one will care. But you care. You don't know why. Back at camp, someone throws a rock into the fire and curses the emperor. You all pretend not to hear. The engineer is already gone, riding off with his scroll and clean boots and the confidence of someone who's never had to relayer gravel in a windstorm. That night you wake to the sound of someone digging, not for work, just digging. You don't ask. You roll over, press your blistered shoulder into the earth, and close your eyes. 12 feet, you think. Just 12 feet. But it might as well be another lifetime. You dream of chickens, not the road, not the overseer, not your shoulder, which now pops every time you reach for your canteen. Just chickens, scratching in dry earth, dust puffing gently around their feet, the cluck of indifference, the sound of a life where the most urgent task is laying an egg. You wake up furious that you're not a chicken, because today is your retirement evaluation, which in theory sounds noble, grand even. But here's what it actually means. If you've made it through a certain number of years or miles of road work without dying, running away, or accidentally insulting the gods, Rome might allow you to leave with your bones still in one piece. You're brought to a makeshift office, a tent with a chair that doesn't collapse and a table made of stacked bricks and optimism. Behind it sits a clerk, thin, serious, ink-stained fingers, eyes like a tired crow. He asks your name. You give it. He flips through a stack of waxed tablets, mumbling, "Ah, you're the one who dropped the marker stone on his own foot." Yes. You nod. He writes something. "Still walk on it." "Mostly," you reply. He grunts. "Noted." He then begins a series of questions, each more surreal than the last. Can you still lift a paving stone? Have you vomited in the last 10 days? Are you able to pronounce Imperator Caesar without weeping? Do you own a tunic not held together with twine? You pass, barely. Historians still argue whether Roman laborers were granted true retirement or simply reassigned to lighter duties like lifting half stones instead of full ones. You're told you might qualify for a land grant, a small plot near the sea. You laugh, out loud. The clerk frowns. Do you not want land? You say, I want to stop smelling like crushed limestone and regret. He doesn't write that down. Instead, he stamps your chit, tells you to report to the departure tent tomorrow at dawn. If your paperwork is processed in time, if there's an escort, if the road's passable. Big ifs. You walk out in a daze and immediately get pulled back in. Because there's a shortage of workers today, and they need help finishing the drainage culvert you dug 2 weeks ago. You point to your stamped chit. The overseer shrugs. That's tomorrow. Today you're still ours, so you go. Because what else is there? You haul stones with a man who just turned 50. His back is bent like a question mark. He tells you he was a mosaic layer once, had a family, a garden. Now he can't see colors right anymore. Thinks they left while he slept. You nod. Then shift a boulder that tries to shift back. The work is slower now. Everyone's tired. Even the road seems reluctant to continue, like it knows it's outgrown you. Quirky tidbit, some veteran laborers were given small bronze medallions called tesserae, symbolic tokens of service. You don't get one, but a younger worker offers you a piece of baked tile with a crude V scratched into it. He says it's for veteranus. You don't correct his spelling. That night you pack your things. 3 items: your old cup, a bent spoon, a rock you picked up near mile 7 because it looked like a sleeping face. You sit beside the fire and listen to the crackle. Someone sings. The tune is familiar now, a lullaby for men who no longer dream of being soldiers, just sleepers. You stare at the road clean in the moonlight, straight, unforgiving. Then you look at your hands, shaped by it, and wonder who shaped who. Tomorrow you leave. If the road lets you, it ends the way it began, with a stone, not a glorious one, not some ceremonial cornerstone laid by a senator in polished sandals, just a regular, dusty, ungrateful chunk of basalt that refuses to sit flat. You press your heel against it. Adjust. Adjust again. Then, finally, gently, it settles. And that's it. You've laid your final stone. No trumpet, no scroll, no statue bearing your name. Just silence. And the sun low and gold stretching your shadow across the road like it's trying to measure everything you've lost to get here. They tell you you're free to go, that the road is finished, that Rome is grateful. But Rome never said thank you. You shoulder your pack. It's light, lighter than you expected. Half the weight is memory. The crew doesn't say goodbye. That's not how things work out here. A few nods, a few grunts. One man offers you a hunk of stale bread. You take it. The gesture means more than the food. You walk, back along the path you built, past milestones you carved, past trees. You cut ditches, you dug curses, you muttered into the gravel. Each step echoes softly, like the road is remembering you in real time. Historians still argue whether Roman laborers understood the scope of what they were part of, whether they saw the road as legacy or burden. Some say they were proud, others say they had no choice. You think both might be true. You pass the stretch where the ox cart tipped, the place where the swamp tried to eat you, the culvert that nearly caved, and the mile marker with the crooked sea. Still there, still dumb, still yours. You pause, brush your fingers over the inscription, and for just a moment, it feels like a gravestone. Quirky fact, some Roman roads are still in use today, buried beneath asphalt, lined with tourists, walked by people with sandals that don't break and feet that don't rot. They don't know your name, but they walk in your footsteps. You keep going. The road behind you doesn't end. It just fades into memory, into dust, into the kind of silence that no empire can pave over. So now, here you are. No hammer in your hand, no stone beneath your feet, no overseer breathing down your neck. Just stillness, the kind that hums in your bones after years of noise, the kind that makes you realize the world doesn't always need building. Sometimes it just needs to be. You sit beside a tree, not a sacred one. Just a simple tree, leaves whispering like old friends. The wind moves through them, slowly, kindly. You lean back, close your eyes. Your body remembers everything, every lift, every fall, every trench you carved in anger, and every stone you placed with care. It remembers what the road took and what it gave. And now there's nothing to build, only to rest. You breathe in the cool air, deeper than you have in months. The kind of breath that doesn't hurt, that fills rather than fights. In the distance you can almost hear footsteps, new crews, new roads, new names, but they're not yours. Not anymore. Let them walk. Let them build. You did your part. You can sleep now, and maybe, just maybe, the road will dream of you too.